Avengers: Age of Ultron. Avengers 2 follows Earth's mightiest heroes as they deal with a killer Skynet robot named Ultron, made by Iron Man. You know, I mentioned in the Iron Man 3 that he has a tendency to make his own enemies, but this is just getting ridiculous. He's physically making him. Everyone's back from the first film, and it feels like they're gelling better as a group. Everyone manages to be likeable and funny, even when competing for time with the other funny and likeable people. Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner, was only a support character in the first film, but here he's given a bit more of a focus, played off as the rational but also quick-witted guy who balances out the more eccentric members. He sadly hasn't gotten his own solo film or even a buddy film with Black Widow, which I'd be in favour of. I mean, come on! It's Robin Hood meets James Bond. Black Widow's got some flack for this movie as being anti-feminist, but I've got to dispute those claims. First of all, the romance with Bruce Banner. It makes so much sense. The whole man turns into monster things is a lot more tragic when you have a romance to ground it, which is what Amazing Spider-Man was missing with the Lizard. And sadly, the series hasn't brought back Betty Ross, which I would love. So it works in a practical sense. And it does make sense in universe for why these two would get together. After all, he's the closest thing to a normal person she knows. She's surrounded by gods and billionaires and soldiers that he's just a normal guy. It's natural to want to gravitate to someone outside of that crazy bubble that they all live in. Also, there have been complaints of her being damseled, since she's captured in the last act and has to be rescued. And I agree, there was way too much of this in previous films. Even when we started getting strong women, they always seem to get damseled, like they would lose their badassery in the final act. But here's the thing. She isn't damseled in this. She's captured, yes, but she gives the team her location via Morse code, which is entirely in character. Think back to the previous films. Acting weak and helpless, then turning the tables to her advantage is exactly the way she operates. The way she handled Loki, the way we see her when we first see her in Avengers, where she's tied up getting information. Because when you get down to it, this is exactly the kind of thing that James Bond or Batman would do. They would let them get captured, and then they would find a way out of it, either by their own means, or if they couldn't do that, getting a message to the outside. Honestly, I don't think any other character could have handled this situation the same way. Plus, she's fighting the climax with everyone else. She isn't captured and then she's out of the way, or created to be a prize for the Hulk or something. It was about moving the plot forward. Context changes these situations, and the difference between a senseless reduction of a woman's power, usually while objectifying her, and turning into a situation where the gender is irrelevant. So, if you're ever wondering if this seems sexist or not, imagine Batman in the same situation. If this would fit in a Batman story, then chances are you can rest easy. You also get new characters, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, who were the first X-Men characters to appear in the MCU. And they're okay. Quicksilver gets a few funny moments, but Witch will take a few films to really become interesting. Vision is also introduced in this, and he's much more fascinating than the other new hires. He's a machine made by Tony's old AI Jarvis, played by Paul Bettany, who was voicing Jarvis in the previous films. He's a great counter to Ultron in that he's a machine who wants to save humanity rather than destroy it. It's a pretty cool twist on the whole super smart AI concept, which nearly always results in extinction for humans. So there's a lot of characters. Unfortunately, that leads to a problem. It's too busy. The first film was simple. Assemble team, stop aliens. But this time we're introducing multiple characters, teasing future films with Thor's Vision Quest, which, while reintroducing old ones, and the lack of solo films for the Widow and Hulk kind of hurts this one since they need to be developed here rather than giving their own time. Like with Amazing Spider-Man 2, this can make the film feel much longer than it actually is. Personally, I would hold off on Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch until, say, Civil War, where there's a connection to the persecution in the X-Men, which would have been better utilised here. Have Vision be the only one you need to introduce here, as he's a servant of Ultron who learns the value of human life. Same results, but with a more streamlined story. Ultron is pretty underrated as far as MCU villains go. James Spader plays him very strange. He's weirdly human in his mannerisms and actions. I mean, he forgets, he jokes, he gets angry. I think my favourite delivery is when Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch bail on him. He has all the trappings of an evil AI, but he's actually funny and entertaining. The action is pretty spectacular, a variety of different matchups, but they're well shot and choreographed well, especially the Hulkbuster fight and when Captain America duels Ultron on a moving truck. And of course we've got the big battle at the end featuring all the heroes, though thankfully we do have a couple of new people to focus on, so it doesn't feel like total repetition of the first film. From the Avengers interactions to Ultron's dialogue, the comedic banter is spot on throughout the entire film. Weirdly enough, the most well-known scene is when they're just sitting around chatting while trying to lift Thor's hammer. It does serve a greater purpose in the film itself later on, but it's a simple team-building scene and it manages to hold its own as a funny moment. In conclusion, Age of Ultron is a fun action film with great characters but feels busy at times, which makes it drag a little bit, so it's an 8 out of 10. The movie is caught in a limbo being its own movie and acting as the middle section of a quadrilogy, but sadly it wasn't able to find the right balance, as all things should be. Speaking of which, join me next time when I'll be looking at something which is an Infinity War because I'm doing these things the order they're released. Take care now, bye bye then.
No. See this? This was aged for 1,000 years. And the barrels built from the wreck of Grunho's fleet is not meant for mortal men.
Neither was Omaha Beach, Blondie. Stop trying to scare us. Come on.
All right.
Excelsior.